Let's try this.
Maybe 200 foot.
Mr. Evans, can you hear us there okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll start here in just a minute. I just wanted to check.
Till my house is built, be living my daughter who is three doors this way from her. August.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to our special city council meeting. Thursday, July 24th, 2026. We will begin tonight with our invocation. I would like to ask Chris Gill to lead us in prayer, please. Sorry for the short notice.
Lord, I want to thank you for this opportunity that we all are here today afforded to serve the citizens of this city. God, I ask that you give us wisdom and patience, Lord, to understand and make the right decisions that would best be for this city. Let us do everything that would be pleasing to you and give you glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. We are now called to order. Our clerk will call the roll, please.
Mayor Charles Briscoe,
Here.
Bill Hannibal,
Here.
Terry Van Buskirk,
Here.
Roger Evans,
Here.
Diane Janey,
Here.
Tim Buskus,
Here.
BJ Elder,
Here.
Chris Gill.
Here.
Thank you. We don't have any citizens' comments tonight, so we'll move on to unfinished business. Item number 1, our proposed charter change for the city manager of residency. This is the second reading.
Okay, so before we would take any action on the second reading here, we did receive some correspondence relating to the previous opposition that was filed dated June the 23rd. We received it on June the 24th. That was the date of the opposition. As of July the 23rd, I received a letter, and I will go ahead and read this as it pertains to the opposition. That way it's on the record. This is to Charles Briscoe, Mayor, Tyler Bragg, Acting City Manager, regarding the charter change dated July 23rd, 2026. It says, we wish to withdraw our request to hold an election regarding the proposed change for residency for a city manager position. The decision we made was after much thought and deliberation. This may prove to be in the best interest of the Plateau City. Respectfully, Daniel E. Wright, Charles Smallwood, and David Perry. So that is a withdrawal of the only opposition that we had to this charter change. Therefore, in accordance with the West Virginia state law, we can proceed with the second reading. I had verified with Mr. File that after the second reading, we have a few administrative steps to take, filing with Secretary of State and the County Commission before we meet all of our obligations for it to become fully in effect. And so if we proceed with the second reading tonight and that goes forward, first thing next week, we'll get the required documentation and get that filed in the appropriate place. So the action tonight would be to move forward and approve the second reading of the proposed charter change.
Mayor, I'll make that motion for the second reading of the proposed charter change.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second for the second reading of the proposed charter change. Any further questions?
Yes, sir. I just want to make it clear that this extends the city manager may live within 2 miles of the municipal boundary. That's the gist of the charter change. Yes.
It does not affect council and the mayor. They still will have to reside within the corporate limits that they reside in.
Correct.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Item number 2, proposed charter change, possible decision to proceed to next step.
We added this item in the event that opposition was not withdrawn, so that we would have an agenda item to take action upon for you all to decide. Since the opposition was withdrawn, we no longer need this item, so no action is required on item number 2.
Right. Thank you, sir. Item number 3, our city manager hiring anticipated executive session. May we have a motion to go into executive session?
Hey, Mayor, can we move that to the last thing?
Would you like to move that to the last thing? That's fine. Any disagreement with that?
No.
All right, we will provide three down at the bottom. Moving on to item number 4, to authorize financing for a new fire engine.
Yes, I emailed you all, well, it was yesterday, an explanation on this, but we did receive an email back from Truist who offered the best rate for the financing, and that's who we were moving forward with. As you may recall at the last meeting, they had previously asked for us to revise the MOU with the county to meet some criteria that they had established. And so we did that and submitted that to them and received an email back from them stating that they did not feel that that was a formal commitment from the county, and they did not feel comfortable financing this without a formal commitment from the county. So aside from trying to navigate reestablishing that MOU or some other form of formal agreement that would satisfy them, we had other options. And I think at this point, we would request that you authorize us to move forward with Pendleton Community Bank, which is where we do a significant portion of our banking anyway. You know, they do offer, it's a favorable, the interest rates were all fairly close. I think I've got the list of them here. So see that. So
That's close.
yeah, it's real close. They were all really close to each other. I mean, it's not going to make a significant difference. Likely will be even more convenient, honestly, because we already have our accounts primarily with PCB. So making that payment when the time comes, we're already established and it'll be easy to make that payment. So at this point, we were trying to get the best rate, but at this point, that doesn't look to be available. So I think our preference would be to go with PCB. And we just wanted to bring that to your attention since we previously received authorization for specifically Truist. We'd like to revise that now that that's not an option and request authorization to move forward with PCB.
Is PCB gonna be one payment a year too?
You said that wasn't a problem.
They did say that was not a problem.
I think we have a motion to authorize the financing.
I'll make that motion.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to authorize financing for a new fire engine. All those in favor? All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to new business. Item number 5, fiscal year 26-27 budget revision.
Okay, I sent you an email yesterday. I'm not sure if you had time. We'd hoped to get it out a little earlier this week, but, we were trying to get it, you know, in good shape. And so, because there's so much to it, I don't know if you all saw the summary document that I submitted. But I'll go through it, because this is going to give you the most efficient snapshot of what we changed. Yeah, let me put it up here. And if you'll bear with me, this is gonna probably take a few minutes, but I think it's worthwhile to highlight everything that we changed. So I'll just go through this. I'll read what I wrote here. We can certainly go through the other documents and we'll do so. At any point, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and we'll do our best to answer your questions. So budget revision number one, updates the fiscal year 26-27 general fund budget to better reflect current operational needs, revised revenue projections, newly awarded grant funding, organizational restructuring, and capital improvement priorities. This revision includes both general fund revenues and expenditures. Increases both general fund revenues and expenditures by $78,908, maintaining a balanced budget. So the original budget for this year was $6,097,109, and the revised budget is now $6,176,017, which represents again the change of an increase of $78,908. A somewhat significant change pertains to the estimated versus the actual year-end fund balance. Of course, when we prepare the budget earlier in the year, you're estimating what you think your remaining funds will be. It's an estimate, best guess. And so we did that at 150,000. After the year-end closeout of financials, the actual fund balance was $266,879. So an increase of $116,879, which is the way you prefer it to go rather than the other way around. Okay, so that's just a little bit of cushion. Revenues were adjusted in various categories to more accurately reflect realistic estimates of projected income. These estimates are based off historical actual collections and known income sources such as grants, rents, insurance claim payments, sale of property, reimbursements, and refunds or credits. There were increases to some line items and decreases to others. Overall, a relatively minor increase occurred in the total estimated revenues. These increases can mostly be attributed to grants received since the budget was submitted. You'll recall we've got the $40,000 economic development grant from Senator Roberts. We got some money, $2,400 some change from Delegate Pritt earlier last month. We've got there was another one we got as well. Right, that was for the cameras. So those were a couple of the grants. We've actually. There's some other grants pending right now that we know are coming in. We've already gotten a portion of them, and I'll go through those later. We're not ready to announce those just yet. But those are some of the things that have occurred. A slight increase in the projection of hotel motel tax revenues, and this was based off of last year's collections and with the opening of the Holiday Lodge. We felt comfortable enough to just bump that up just a little bit based on what we actually collected last year, which exceeded our projections for last year by about $10,000. And an increase to the final fund balance, which I just covered. So we can refer to, there's a budget comparison, 2026-2027 document, which is the individual line by line. We can look at that at any point in time if you want to go through that. But that's where the changes are. And we'll quickly go through, after I get done with this, the actual budget revision document where it shows you everything that's changed. As far as expenditures, as you know, we previously identified numerous operational items that were not included in the approved budget. We've worked very hard to accurately update all figures to more appropriate numbers. There were across the board changes to salary and benefits to account for the 3% salary increase, 3% PDIA increase, and a 1% reduction in retirement contributions, and adjustments to workers' compensation insurance. Figures were also adjusted to more accurately reflect increases in utility bills and other known expenses. And again, as we're going through that, making these adjustments, we're looking at last year's expenditures and making sure that we're putting enough in each line item to cover at least what last year's was. And oftentimes we'll try to build just a little bit of cushion into that in the event you got rate increases taking place and so forth. And overtime, looking at last year's overtime, especially when you look at like the street department, it's kind of a moving target. You don't know what kind of winter you're going to get. And the primary source of the overtime is the street plow. You may have a light winter and then you've got a bunch left over, which is nice. This year we had quite a bit. And I think we actually exceeded the projected amount for this last year, because it seemed like it never failed. We would go through all week with pretty weather and we get to Friday and Saturday and it would snow. And so they're out all weekend on overtime. That's just, we just have to do it. It's unavoidable. So I'll go through a summary of changes by department. This is kind of the most efficient way without getting into each little line item. Civil service, no change to that. Mayor was an increase of 1,825, and that was just adjustments due to FICA tax, workers' comp, et cetera. No change to city council. City manager's office, increase of $35,801. A significant portion of that, and the clerk's office, or the clerk and treasurer's office, and city hall reflect staffing and organizational restructuring and reallocation of personnel into the appropriate categories. So we've shifted some of those around to more accurately reflect where those personnel fit within either treasurer, clerk, city hall. And so that's created a little bit of change. So this category, city manager's office, includes the city manager and the GIS coordinator. City manager wages were slightly increased, the allocation for that due to unknown salary negotiations for the incoming manager. We didn't want to be strictly held and restrict what you all are able to offer based on what's in the budget. So we bumped it just a little bit just to make sure we had and gave you the flexibility to offer what you felt. So we did increase it by a little bit. We don't use it, great. It can be reallocated in a future budget revision. That's no problem. Treasurer's office decreased by $37,930. This was primarily due to the removal of the allocation previously made to the payment for the AccuFund software, which has been discontinued. So that actually freed us up a little bit with the money we were planning to pay them. The clerk's office increased by $11,093. Again, this was minor adjustments to salary with the 3% increase, benefits, retirement, overtime and extra help, and professional service. And as professional services, there's so many things that fall into that. Anytime we have to have legal services, audit service, any financial assistance, any of that type of stuff. Advertising, all falls under that professional services category. The police judge decreased by $1,109. Again, that's minor adjustments to salary and benefits and retirement. Retirement did go down, so that's adjusting those and FICA and workers' comp and getting all that. It made changes across the board. So the category for professional engineer, we did increase that by $15,000, which had 0 in it previously. If you'll recall, we now have the on-call engineer with Chapman Technical Group, which was authorized for up to $25,000 for the year. However, we're trying to stretch and get things in the appropriate category. So we allocated $15,000 for now. Don't think we would need to use $25,000 for the year. I mean, the option's there. If we do at a later point, we'll have to shift some things around. But I think allocating $15,000 there for now should be sufficient. And I will say, while we're talking about that, case in point where we're going to need to use them, we've actually already used them a couple of times for plan review for zoning. But I will tell you, last night we had a vehicle strike the Neil's Eye restroom building, ran off the road and wrecked into the building. Some initial damage we weren't sure about, but I will tell you on the inside of it, it was observed some significant cracking in the concrete block. And this is a situation where we are gonna employ our on-call engineers to go do a structural assessment and make sure that that building is safe for occupancy or use, and make sure that there's, if there's anything we need to do, let's get a recommendation for how we get this fixed. So that's, again, exactly one scenario, the reason why we like to have that in place. So it has come in useful so far. Custodial decreased by 56,678. This significant change here was staffing and organizational restructuring to restore prior years' structuring of custodial services. If you'll recall, I think previously Alan from the police department was pulled out of the police department's budget and put into custodial. We restored that back to the way it was for consistency's sake, and represent him being under the police department. Regional Development Authority had no change. Planning and zoning increased by $36,257. Again, minor adjustments to salary. Additionally, the allocation for hiring of a new full-time building inspector and the associated benefits. Elections, we increased that by 12,000. In the former budget for this year, there was $0 in the elections category. Of course, knowing that we have a municipal election next spring, we have to have that money in there to pay for that. And looking at the previous expenditures, we did increase it by a little bit. I think it was previously 11,000 is what was allocated the last time it was in there. So we bumped it up a little bit. Hopefully that'll be enough to cover it. It's kind of an estimation at this point, but we'll pivot and kind of fill in, backfill if we need to. But we gotta have that in there to pay for that. So. City Hall decreased by $90,086. Again, a significant portion of these changes were to reflect staffing and organizational restructuring and the reallocation of personnel to the appropriate categories. Again, adjustments were made to anticipated utility expenses based on prior year's actual expenditures. This was another set of categories where it appeared that the allocation for those utility bills were low and wouldn't be sufficient to cover. Other buildings had no change. Police department increased by 61,440. Again, the adjustments to the salary and benefits did also make an increase in materials and supplies, auto supplies, training and education, again, based on last year's expenditures. Though this is represented not within the police department's budget, I put it here because this was one of the requirements operationally. And it's represented in another line item. But we did fit in an allocation for 1.5 police cars, which sounds really strange when you talk about a half a police car. But the cruiser that was just in the wreck that got totaled, we're receiving an insurance check back for that, but it's only going to pay for about half of a new police car.
I thought Liz was gonna buy a motorcycle with
Yeah.
sidecar on the side of it.
Yeah. So we communicated enough between the insurance money that's going to come back for the cruiser that was wrecked. There's enough to go ahead and pay it and replace that cruiser and buy one additional.
That was.
That's right. I didn't put that on there. That does allocate the 3 additional officers that he doesn't have right now that are allocated to him. But that's in the budget. The wages and everything is in. Fire department increased by 480. That was just minor adjustments to salary and workers' compensation. Excuse me. Streets and highways decreased by 59,681. Again, adjustments to salary and benefits. Additionally, the city mechanic for this year was moved out of this category and moved down into central garage to better represent, his status as the central garage. There was a bit of an increase in overtime based on last year's expenditures. Again, that's primarily snow plowing and other required activities for those for our street department staff. Again, represented in another line item below, but pertinent to this, we did manage to squeeze in an allocation for 1 additional plow truck. So we did just get a new one. It was the truck that burnt during plow season. What's that? The dump truck, yeah. So that one was replaced. We do have that new truck now. And there's still a need for at least 1 more. They could probably use 2. Couldn't fit 2 in this year, but I wanted to at least try to get 1, and we were able to do so.
And
and a mower as well, which has also been another struggle for our mowing crew, which I do commend them and our mechanic collectively for keeping these things patched together. We've got a couple of mowers that really could use replacement. But they've been very good about keeping them together, understanding that we just didn't have it to buy a new mower this year. It wasn't in the budget. So wanted to make sure we got at least one in the budget for next year, and we were able to do so. This also includes three temporary full-time summer help employees, which is anywhere between 3 and 4. This year we have 3. We've included that in there. Next year, that's pretty critical. I don't know, I'm sure you all have seen them out and about, but that takes a huge load off of our crews that are part of the grass mowing crew. There's a lot of weed eating that has to be done, and that's primarily what the summer crew do is weed eat. And it's a struggle when grass starts mowing in the early part of the year before school lets out. Our mowing crew is eagerly awaiting the let out of school to get these summer kids in here. So very beneficial. Total street lights, that was an increase of $20,000. Again, we've talked about this before with the replacement of street lights through attrition, or whether it be planned or through attrition. Every time a street light goes out, it gets replaced with an LED light because AEP tells us they can no longer get the high pressure sodium or the mercury bulbs. And so it gets a new fixture. Those new fixtures do cost a bit more per month. We don't pay for the fixture. They don't charge us for the actual fixture itself, but the monthly cost of that increases slightly to cover the cost. I guess you could kind of look at it like they're subsidizing the fixtures through the monthly payment. And so slowly and with AEP rate increases, right, the electricity bill increases, and we spent more last year than was allocated in this line item. And so we wanted to make sure that we had enough to cover that. So that was the increase. $20,000 seems like a lot, but I think we exceeded it by almost $20,000 this last year. So no sense in budgeting under the amount we know we're going to spend on it. So we get into central garage, an increase of $5,887. Again, that was our mechanic coming off onto that. And this was primarily minor adjustments to salary, benefits, retirement, overtime allocation. I think that was another one with this where, during plow season, the mechanic's out just about as much as everybody else because stuff breaks down,
Plus, he's certified to put stickers on vehicles.
Yeah.
So he's working, doing.
Yeah. He does a lot.
He's not, just so that everyone is clear, he's not just the mechanic for the street department. He does everything. He's used at the fire department. He's been called out on weekends after hours because we've had an issue with the truck, something break down and need a mechanic right then, and he comes out as soon as you call.
Yeah.
He's also police department too, isn't he?
Yep.
That's what I was thinking. So he actually covers more than just one field.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's more than just the street department. He is covering the entire city,
Yes.
everybody, and does a fantastic job of it.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sanitary board.
Yeah.
Yeah, does a fantastic job of it.
We go to parks, decrease of 67,791, which sounds odd, but the decrease, but we fit everything in there that they needed to get fit in there. So by the time you adjusted everything, so we got minor adjustments to salary, benefits, retirement, overtime allocation. That was another one. They ended up getting pulled to do a lot of snow plowing with the street department just to kind of assist them. So we spent actually more than what their allocation was this past year. That may change a little bit as far as what gets structured next year. I don't think they're going to use the parks department quite as much with our staffing in the street department. So we were able to reduce their overtime allocation. They still need some. I mean, these guys come out, they got to unlock the bathrooms every morning on the weekends. People have been using the park so much down there. They're having to come out every day and empty all the trash cans in the park. I mean, it's just, they're filling up Otherwise, they just overflow. So
Yeah.
again, some of this overtime is unavoidable. It's just gotta happen.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good problem to have down there at the park. For
Yes,
sure.
it is.
So we increased allocation to City Park, Needles Eye Park, White Oak Rail Trail, and Collins Park based on known grant matches and projected expenses. I think you all previously saw earlier in the year that there were several needs. We had some grants coming up. We knew we had matches for. Those are all in here. They're covered. One big thing that affected this budget was, and we've talked about this earlier in the year, the $50,000 allocation for the ARC grant out of Needles Eye Park. That was not included in the budget previously this year, and it had to be. We'd already committed to that. Well, what we were able to work out, because we didn't know exactly, we've been carrying that, I think, for 2 years on the budget. We didn't know exactly when we were going to have to expend that. That's a project overseen by Region 4 Planning and Development Council. So we, Josh Sapio coordinated with them and said, look, can we go ahead and deposit that money with you? Right, we've got it allocated in our budget. Can we go ahead and get it to you? And that way it's off of our books and you've got it with the project. So we were able to do that. So it no longer needs to be on our budget because we've already spent that. So that was a help. And that's all taken care of. So anyway, that brings us to Visitors Bureau, increase of $31,000. So this line item has to increase with any increase in projected hotel motel tax, right? So 50% of that goes to the New River Gorge CVB, and then there's an additional 10% that goes to the Southern West Virginia CVB. This is all established the way it's been. So we did do a slight increase in the hotel motel projection, and so with that comes an increase in this line item, and making sure that we have allocated. I think previously the 10% we determined was not in there. And so that comes out, it really did get budgeted. We went ahead and added that budget line item in there to include that. It's a known expense. Let's get it in there and count it.
Is there ever a time that can be looked at, that it can be reduced, or is that something that has to stay like that?
I'll have to check. I'm not
That's a
sure.
lot.
I want to say, do you remember, is it state code, this 50%? I think
And
it's a
that's
state
That's why
code.
it's established that
Yeah.
if you collect it, if you collect the hotel motel tax, that you have to make that contribution to the CVBs, and then you're limited in how we can spend our 50%.
Has to be, well, previously it has to be Parks and Recreation, some sort of recreation. But they did just pass a new state code this year, I think, that allowed a little bit of flexibility in that for some other things.
So. Okay.
I
The
think-
convention center in Charleston is paid.
Yeah.
Through hotel motel tax.
Just thought of that.
Fairs and festivals did not change. Libraries, we did remove allocation of $1,000 based on council's previous vote. Excuse me, beautification was reduced by $3,000. Now, this was allocated at $12,000 for fiscal year 26, so the previous year. In this year's budget, originally it was increased to 15,000. And we simply moved it back to 12,000 because looking at the previous year, it didn't all get spent. So we didn't see that they would need an additional allocation of funds having not spent what was there already. Now, the only thing that might change or that could change on that is, I know they've been talking about getting a new piece to that Christmas tree for a couple of years. That was a couple $1,000s. You know, we'll deal with that if it comes. We were having to, well, there's kind of core things that we need to fund, and then there's some things that we felt necessary to kind of dial back just a little bit on to make sure we could fund the core things like the plow trucks and the police cars and, you know, the necessary park grant matches. Capital projects, this is where you get into the line item for public safety. That's where you see that increase by $105,000. That's the allocation for the 1.5 cruisers. The street department, that's an increase of $73,800, which represents the plow truck and the mower. And so, yeah, in closing on this summary, budget revision number 1 updates this year's budget to reflect current operational realities, incorporate newly awarded grant funding, reallocate personnel costs among the departments, and advance key capital improvement projects. The amendment remains balanced, increases both revenues and expenditures by 78,908, and positions the city to continue investing in public safety infrastructure, economic development, and recreational assets while maintaining our fiscal responsibility. So that's the summary. Certainly happy to answer any questions. We can also jump over to the actual budget revision document. I can go through this line by line. I can give you an overview, for example, on the revenues, the net increase here, again, 78,908. These are the line items that it represents, plus there's an additional page of all the revenues that we changed. Again, you'll see this column D here are the ones that increased, and then you've got a column here for the ones that decreased. So as I mentioned before, some went up, some went down. Again, based on the best information we have available, known grants, known income sources, last year's revenues, all the things, kind of looking at each line item and making the best. It's a best guess. It's an educated guess based on the information you have available to you. But this is a starting point. We get to the mid-year, we assess at that point, do a mid-year budget revision to kind of dial it into what it's looking like for the mid-year. So happy to look at this further, more in depth, line by line, however you all wish to do it. Happy to answer any questions. I do feel like this is a much more functional, practical budget than what we started out with this year, based on our review of last year's expenses and everything that we know is coming up. So, and that we need. So, if there are no questions, if you all don't have any discussion on it, the action here would be to, well, let me step back 1 second. This budget revision is required by the state to be submitted by July 30th, which is why it's on this meeting, so that we have time to get it in. So, if you don't have any questions and you feel compelled to do so, the action here would be to approve this budget revision so that we can submit it to the state.
I make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 26-27 budget revision.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, excuse me, to accept the 26-27 budget revision. All those in favor? All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Tyler. Item number 6, the coal severance budget revision.
This is, you'll recall, or this will sound familiar. We added this item very last minute at the last meeting, unfortunately, due to a requirement to get it submitted to the state. On advice of counsel, our legal counsel, he suggested we go ahead and put it on this meeting where we have given proper advance notice of the meeting, and of course, allow any opportunity for a citizen to come forward with any questions, comments, or concerns. That being said, this is here for a vote that essentially ratifies the previous approval and reapproves this for formality's sake. So the action tonight would be to approve the coal severance budget revision that was previously approved on July 13th, 2026.
May we have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the coal severance budget revision.
Second
We
that.
have a motion and a second to accept the coal severance budget revision. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Item number 7, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Attorney RFP Award.
Yes, this is the FEMA quote unquote buyout for the 9 properties in Minden. Part of that, we're working with, let me get something on the screen here. We are working, Region 4 is helping administer that. They conducted the advertisement for the RFP. There is a requirement for legal services, and they require that you put out an RFP for that to give firms the opportunity to submit proposals. for the legal services required for this project, which includes title examinations and deeds, and I think there may be a few other documents they'll have to do. We only received one, proposal, so the choice is pretty easy on this one. That proposal is Steptoe and Johnson. And Leslie Taylor with Region Four Planning and Development Council has reviewed this. It does seem to be in line with, typical fees that these legal, for legal services. And her recommendation is that, we would accept this. She thinks it is very good. So, if you all wouldn't mind, the action here tonight would be to approve the selection of Steptoe and Johnson for legal services for the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program.
And let me add that there's no financial obligations to the city in regards to this,
That's
correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
We have none.
Make a motion.
That being said, I'll make that motion.
I second that motion.
Motion and a second to accept Steptoe and Sons, the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Attorney RFP Award. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. All right, moving down to our last item, our city manager hiring. May we have a vote to go into executive session, please?
I'll make a motion that we go in executive session.
We have a second.
I second it.
Y'all can stay here and I'll leave.
In favor? All opposed? We are now in executive session. All right, now we have a motion to return to our normal session, exiting executive session.
I'll make that motion.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to return to our normal special session. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. That executive session produced no fruit this evening, so no action will be taken. I think the last thing is our adjournment. Does anyone have any comments before we go? All right, may I have a motion of adjournment?
Motion.
Make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All right. Officially adjourned. We're not even gonna vote. Let's go home.
Okay.